for October 5th to order. Bertie, can you have a call, roll call of the members, please?
Yes, Mr. Vice President. Mr. Roya. You with us, Jamie?
Here. Sorry,
Baker.
guys, here.
Here.
Ms. Craig?
Here.
Ms. Diaz?
Here.
Mr. Garcia Molina?
Here.
Mr. Soto?
Here.
And President Smith Waddell.
We could go ahead with the approval of the minutes for September 1st, 2020, and the September 17th committee meeting, special meeting, 2020. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve both.
Second.
Ernie, I believe we have a motion and a second.
Mr. Roya?
Aye.
Ms. Baker?
Aye.
Ms. Craig?
Aye.
Ms. Diaz?
Aye.
Mr. Garcia Molina?
Aye.
Mr. Soto?
Aye.
And, well, obviously not Mr. President Smith Waddell.
And at this time, I turned the meeting over to the Personnel Committee. Ms. Diaz?
Yes, Mr. Vice President, I'd like to motion to have Mr. Volnick to the Lancaster Municipal Authority as a member pending for City Council approval. And that would be for October 13, 20 to December 31st, 25. I
think Mr. Molyneux's in the waiting room.
Okay. So if you would like to patch him in so he can say a few words, please.
Hi, can you hear me? This is John Molyneux. I can't see myself, so I can see you all. So I'm here. I will confess I haven't done a job interview since 1975, and that's probably before most of you were born. So any kind of questions you may have of me.
Any questions from the committee?
Mr. Molyneux, I just wanted to thank you for your willingness to serve. It looks like this is an appointment and not a reappointment. So we are very glad to have folks like you who are willing to serve on these important boards, commissions, and authorities for the city. It's integral to making things work day to day. So I just want to thank you for your time and your willingness.
You're quite welcome.
Counselor, if I may. Mr. Molyneux, I also want to second that and share my gratitude for people like you that want to come in and do the work. I just wanted to hear from you why you're interested in doing this, honestly.
Well, that's an interesting story. I believe in helping out, and my wife and I moved to the city a little over 4 years ago. And a couple of years after we moved, I was talking to my friend John Meter and said, "Hey, I'm looking for some way to get involved." Had no idea, and I said, "If you hear anything, let me know." And he came back to me a few months ago and said, "The city's looking for someone to sit on this board." He gave me a 2-minute thumbnail. He said, "Would you mind if I put your name forward?" And I said, "Absolutely not. I'm willing to do it."
That's great. Well, I am even more grateful that you've been here 4 years and you're already ready to hit the ground running and just be a part of the community in this way. So thank you.
Again, you're welcome.
That's it for me, Counselor Diaz.
Any questions for full council? Any questions from the public? Okay. I had made a motion. Nobody, can somebody approve?
Second.
That? Okay, so I would like to then bring this to full council October the 13th. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mulek, for attending. And if you'd like to stay, you're welcome to. For our next, there's actually four. Okay, so we have, and I think these are all reappointments to the Board of Plumbing.
We should have two more. We should have two more people joining us.
Okay,
Carlos Capera, who's up, and also Sean Way.
okay. Are they all going to the same board? I'm trying to.
Carlos is
it's-
going to the Lancaster Municipal Authority and Sean Way to the Board of Plumbing Examiners.
Okay, I did have this, but I'm having some technical difficulties here. Hold on one second.
No worries. It looks like Mr. Grapera is in the attendee list.
Yeah, I added both Mr. Grapera and Mr. Way, so they can speak when it's their turn.
Let me see here.
I do have the agenda in front of me if you need a hand. I know I sometimes struggle with pulling them up.
I had everything set and it just completely just went out. So if you want to go ahead,
Yeah, no, I thought I'd give you a hand. That's not a problem. Carlos Grapera is up for appointment also to the Lancaster Municipal Authority for the same term as Mr. Milano, and it looks like he's here.
okay. So if he'd like to step in and speak, okay, here it is. Is it Grapera first? Okay, here we go. Hopefully
Good afternoon, everybody.
Hello.
There we go. So Carlos has been around and I know him for many years. Would you like to address the committee if they have any questions?
Just a remark. When Mayor Sirachi asked me if I was interested in the municipal authority, of course I said yes. My only comment is that I've been around a long time, as you mentioned, and I really think that Lancaster is a special place. I think a lot of people would in other communities would say that, but I really think that we have exceptional people, high civic standards, and I really, from my vantage point, take a lot of satisfaction in seeing how this community continues to progress, and anything I can do to help municipal government continue on its path, I'm more than happy and honored to serve.
Any other questions from the committee?
No
No,
other questions, Council. Just another thank you, heartily.
You're so welcome. Thank you.
Okay, I make a motion then.
second.
If no one else has any questions, I would like to move this into full council on October 13. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, let me see if I could pull up the next one here.
Let me know. if you need-
Come on. Okay, here's the plumbing. Okay, so the next motion would be for the reappointments of, and we can just, I'll go through them. It's Steve Schwanger, Chad Walton, Daniel Moser, and Barry Souder. And these are all reappointments, and of course, pending reapproval. So I'd like to make a motion then.
Second.
Okay. Does anyone in the committee or anyone have any questions? I don't think any of them are on here because they've been on the board for a while. And I'd like to bring this to full council then October 13th. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, let me see if I can bring the next one. Let's see. No, that's not it.
It looks like, Counselor Diaz, we have Jose Colon for appointment as an alternate member of the Planning Commission.
Right, that is correct.
We also have Sean Way, who is with us at the moment.
Yes.
Okay, well, I'd like to make a motion then for Carlos no, that's not the one. I swear, I just thought I opened that. Give me a second. Colon, where are you? I guess he will be stepping down. Is that correct?
I'm
And he
sorry,
will
it would be,
be the alternate. No, he's an appointment, correct? Okay.
yeah.
He's
Jose
an
Colon is
appointment for an
stepping,
alternate. Is that correct?
yes, he's stepping down as a regular member of the Planning Commission, and he would be rejoining as an alternate.
Thank you, Bernie.
So
So
I did
I'd
not
like to,
ask him to join us this evening.
okay, so I'd like to go ahead and make that motion then.
Second.
And if anyone, does anyone have any questions at all? Nope, okay. Then I'd like to make this, bring this up to full council October 13th. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, let me see. This is James. Okay, the next individual is another reappointment then to James Cunningham, which would be 5-year term on December 31st, 20 to December 31st, 2025.
Mhm.
Okay, did someone did someone approve that motion then?
Oh, I'll second that.
Okay, and does anyone have any questions then? And if there's no questions, I'd like to go ahead and bring this to full council October 13. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And the plumbing
I think we just have Mr. Way now.
board. Okay,
Quite a few of them tonight.
who's missing? James. Oh, there it is. Okay. You're correct, Mr. Way. Okay, so I'd like to go ahead and make this motion for this individual submission for appointment for the Board of Plumbing Examiners.
Second.
And do we have any questions from the committee?
It looks like Mr. Way's on. I would just be curious to have Mr. Way introduce himself briefly and talk about why he's interested in serving. I
He's
see.
here. Okay. Mr. Way,
Yes,
would you like to address council, please?
good evening. Yeah, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to serve on this board. It means a big deal, you know, the way the economy is and everything else, making sure we keep this trade going in the right direction and helping these younger guys get properly licensed and, you know, looking after the city the way it should be.
Any other questions for Mr. Way?
Thank you
No,
very much.
Thank you.
Any questions from full council?
I just want to take the opportunity and thank all the candidates who are being appointed and reappointed to the authorities and boards. I think it's very appreciative of all the work and time that they spent on these boards. Just want to say thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. VP. I would like then to bring this to full council October 13th. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'd like to thank everyone that's coming on to help our community. This is the end of our personnel committee, Mr. Vice President.
Thank you, Councilor Diaz. At this time, I turn it over to Finance Committee, Ms. Bakay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice President. This evening, we have one item on the agenda. It's a presentation from the Lancaster Public Library. We'll be joined tonight by Jamie Hall, who is the Development Director, and also Lissa Holland, who is the Executive Director of the library. And it looks like they're being brought into the meeting. And Mr. is also popping in case he has anything to.
Hi,
Hello,
everyone.
good evening. If you, do you have a screen to share or a presentation?
I
to share?
do. I
Perfect.
do. Yes.
Please go right ahead.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jamie Hall, and I'm the new Director of Development at the Lancaster Public Library. I'm only a few weeks in, so I have Lissa Holland, our Executive Director, joining me here today. And I believe that Cindy Farley is also joining us, our CFO. They'll be able to help with any questions that I may not be able to answer, any of the tough stuff that you guys have for me. I wanted to go through some of the things that the library has done over the past year, particularly how we've handled 2020 and looking forward to 2021. Thank you so much for having me on tonight, and thank you so much for your continued support. Our mission at the Lancaster Public Library is to strengthen our community through connecting people with information, ideas, and experiences. Our vision is that we provide equitable access and access to all ages, backgrounds, and everyone in our city for free, and that we strive to be a center of knowledge and a cornerstone of the Lancaster community. It's amazing just how many people in Lancaster City use our Lancaster Public Library. There is 46% of Lancaster City residents that have a current library card. That's over 28,000 residents. Those 28,000 residents borrowed over 300,000 materials in 2019 alone. The American Library Association values those at about $17 per material, which works out to be over $5 million of worth for the Lancaster City community. People may have a misconception that only a certain age group uses the library. This is untrue. We can see here that we have people from every age enjoying the library and borrowing materials. To make sure that we deliver on our promise of providing for each age group and of every background, we have programming for adults and for children. We also have resources including the Duke Street Business Center, public computer access, and we have job resources. We normally have typical years, we have annual programming for children, such as our summer reading program, as well as STEM classes and computer coding. And for adults, we also have computer classes and book discussions. We often partner with other community organizations, such as the Lancaster chapter of the NAACP and the YWCA, as well as TEDx Lancaster. Like I said, that's on a typical year. This year we've changed things, but we've always continued to provide free materials for our community. 2020 has been unpredictable. I'm sure I don't have to remind any of you of that. And we're all continuing to adapt. The one thing that has stayed constant is the library support of the community. Within 24 hours of Governor Wolf announcing that businesses needed to close in March, we had a plan in place that we were still going to be able to provide resources for our community. Some of the ways we did that was during the closure, moving things virtually. We still continue to do that. We have virtual programs such as Mother Goosey's Storytime, and we have recently added outdoor programming such as Storytime in Musser Park. One of the most popular ways that we provided for the community during the closure and continue today is increased access to ebooks and streaming services through programs called Hoopla and Overdrive. People are able to access for free a number of ebooks and movies and stream them to their tablets. As soon as Lancaster County went into the, I believe, yellow phase, we were able to provide curbside pickup and continue to have grab bags that you can come and get a genre of books that you may enjoy. We pick a few titles for you and minimize contact. We still have remote access to the Duke Business Library materials. and just recently added a socially distanced study hall for children ages 9 through 18 to provide reliable Wi-Fi and a quiet place to go and study. When people hear virtual, they think free or cheap. That's not the case. And we've certainly had a number of costs that we did not anticipate for 2020 that all are around these programs, Hoopla and Overdrive. You can see here that our circulation certainly increased during our time of closure. It's come down a little bit since we've reopened and are able to have people borrow physical materials, but we still are using the ebook services much more than we ever had in the past. That being said, it looks that we are going to be about $7,000 over in our budgeted amount for these materials. And that means that we have to take that from other places. We have to eliminate some of the other programs that we thought we were going to be adding this year and taking away from our physical collection. The Lancaster Public Library annual budget is 62% library generated. That means through the generosity of our community and fundraising, we are making up the majority of our budget. Another part of that is late fees and some fees for passports and different items like that, very small percentage. Unfortunately, this year, our community is still fortunately, it's still very generous. Unfortunately, everyone's feeling the impact of COVID-19 and we've had to cancel many events. And this number is going to be a harder number to hit this year. And we're projecting right now that our fundraising amounts are not going to be nearly as generous as they've been in the past. Just to compare what our budget looks like and what our library looks like compared to Pennsylvania, there's roughly 450 public libraries in the state of Pennsylvania. We rank pretty high in the list for other revenue at 4th, same with service area size and number of materials offered. We are 28th for operating expenditure, 99th for total local funding, and then we hit the bottom of the list in 2 categories: number of staff per capita, where we're roughly 1 staff member for 8,000 residents in our area, and we're 439th in local funding per capita. To compare that nationally, this chart speaks for itself in showing that the national average for local funding is about $37, where ours is roughly $1.50. You can see that on the state and federal levels as well. That other sources would be that library generated income that I had spoken about before. As we look to the future, we realize that we're only able to serve our community when we're supported by our community. And we ask of the municipality of Lancaster City for your continued support. We recognize these are very uncertain times, and the more certainty we have in our community partners, the better we can plan for 2021. And that concludes my presentation. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Thank you very much, Jamie. My question is forward-looking for the library. Actually, first, it's looking back over the year. Were any staff positions eliminated or cut during your closure, or at all during 2020?
No, we still have all of our staff on.
And do you anticipate for 2021 bringing on any additional staff to support any of the virtual or ebook collections or needs that you may have, or anything else?
I'm going to look to Lissa Holland to answer that question. Lissa, do you have any?
We would love to, but we don't have the funding to do so. We, as you see, are working with a skeleton crew. We are thrilled that we did continue to pay all of our staff through our quarantine period. We let nobody go. We would very much love to be staffed with more bodies. And someday, if we have the funding, absolutely. I think it's pretty amazing with the amount of people on staff and the amount of work that we provide to the community. It's pretty amazing that we do what we can do. But we always say, imagine what we could do if we had more staff. If we're happy to some degree of where we are, but our wish is to go out into the community more. When I took over as the executive director, one of my goals, if we are funded at some point, is to create little outposts of the library throughout the city, especially in areas where a lot of the residents don't use our resources here at the main library. I would love to be able to go out, but we are at the mercy of our municipalities in funding us and our fundraisers. So
Thank you. Certainly understand that. I do have another question before I open up to the rest of the committee. Somewhat related. What is the status? Obviously, the construction is one thing. But the status of the library move. Do you have a projected time when you're looking forward to that? Are you fully funded in that move? Or are you still fundraising for that move?
We are still fundraising for that move. We were moving forward with our capital campaign projected to start about March 17th. So that got a little on hold and plans have definitely changed. That being said, we are now getting back into the stages of launching the campaign. And as you said, construction is moving again. And we are looking forward to that move, hopefully at the beginning of 2022. Fingers crossed.
yeah, I mean,
That's not in writing.
we are moving no matter what. We will do whatever we need to do to move into a fabulous new location. But as Jamie said, right, literally as we were stepping out to announce it, the world changed and turned upside down. So we are getting back in. And that's why it's important for people to recognize that a physical location is still key to a public library. People are saying, well, you know, if you can go offline, why do that? Whereas we're saying, yes, you can do things offline, online, but to gather together for the educational purposes, for sharing of ideas, for hands-on, absolutely the building is more important than ever. And in fact, as you know, the design was created, and since we have reopened in the yellow phase and now the green, we have worked with our architects to make it more pandemic friendly. So in some respects, we're rather, if there's a silver lining, the silver lining is that we were able to maneuver some of our design to keep us up to date and ahead of the game. So if that's a silver lining, it's something that is positive that came out of the pandemic for us.
Thank you very much for that insight. Are there any other questions from members of the committee?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, Ms. Bakay. I do have a question for Ms. Hall or Ms. Holland. Percentage-wise, how many county residents come to the city library? And the follow-up to that would be, how much county funding do we get for the city library?
I'm going to have Lissa help me on that as well, because it is a bit of a complicated answer.
I off the top don't know. I can look very quickly on what our, I don't have that information on the tip. Oh, I thought I did. I don't. I can get back to you and give you how many card holders we have. The problem is that, you can use any library you want. So even if they don't physically come to our branch, either we can send materials to them. And we are, of course, have the largest collection in the county, and our materials are used most often. So even if they're not physically here, they can use our materials. So I would have to pull those numbers together. I don't have one number right now, but I would be happy to get back to you on that.
And that's fine. I'm just trying to see if there's an equity here between how much funding may come from county or not on it.
No, there is no equity in the funding. For instance, per capita, we get $1.23. Gap and Peckway Valley get in the about $15 per capita. Now that is state funding, not county. Majority of the county funding goes to the library system of Lancaster County. And that is very complicated for many people to understand, that the system is the back office. What they do then is, for the state funding, that gets divided up with a very complicated funding formula that is not equitable. Even when they divide things from the system, if they get so much money, often, and I would say 99% of the time, we will, if they're dividing books up, let's say, we will get the same number of books that GAP will get. And we service 40%, over 40% of the county is in our service area. So it's something that we are asking for the system to look at, to relook at service areas and to relook at the state funding, because it is not equitable.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Jamie.
Amanda, I'd like to ask a question.
Mhm.
In regards to, first, I really want to thank Lancaster Library, because I used it for so many years. And
Great.
having been someone that lived in poverty, that was my resources to study. And I just wanted to say thank you. But the question in regards to, let's say, those fees that you're not collecting currently, have that affected some of the families that have lost their jobs due to COVID?
We are doing fees. Again, we have late fees, but again, we are looking at what is equitable. And if somebody has an issue, we will take it case by case and certainly waive fees if they aren't able to pay them. Where we don't have that luxury is if they have materials from another library outside of Lancaster Public Library. Then it is up to because we are all individual libraries with our own policies and procedures, but we very much want to work with people to make it equitable for anyone to use our services. And we are trying to come up with a way where even if you do not have a card, you can use our computers without having to come and ask for it. Unfortunately, because that comes out of the system and the whole county uses the same system, they usually do have to come, but without any questions asked, we will give them a guest pass and they can use it that way. So yes, we will very much work with people. And even through this period of the pandemic, if people can't wear masks, we will meet them outside. We have a variety of services that if they can't come in with a mask, and I am asking people to wear them for the safety of our staff, we will meet them. We will pull books before they come or even while they're standing there, and they can pick what they want. They can tell us what they want and we will have a bag ready for them to walk away with. So again, even when it comes to mask wearing, we have plans to help people in any way we can. We want to meet them where they are, and we don't expect everybody to fit into one nice category. We're here to help on their own needs.
Just to add,
Oops,
I'm
sorry.
so sorry. I was just going to add that there have been a number of different studies done mostly by the American Library Association in 2008 through 2012 about library users during a recession. And that number dramatically increased the last recession, and especially people looking for job resources, people using the computers. It's getting people back in the library. So we see, even though it might be not as busy and bustling as it normally was pre-pandemic, we do see these numbers increasing, and we only see them increasing in the next few years.
And in regards to funding from the county, have they given you any resources related to, obviously, COVID-19 to have all the PEEs you need and any disinfectant or gloves that you might require? Or
We have taken advantage of getting free PPE from resources where possible. Lancaster County is one of the few counties in the state that has shared PPE funding with the public libraries. We are in the same category as municipalities and school districts. We were asked to give them our list of what we spent, and originally we were led to believe that they would cover more laptops for staff and each individual needs from the different libraries. Again, this shows how it was divided. We all got the same amount of money. We had at the time 3 locations. Since we have closed our Leola branch because it is so small and is not suitable for social distancing. So we have Mountville and the city location, and we still got the same amount of money as every other library in the county. And not that we are saying no thank you, we are grateful for that money, but again, it shows the inequitableness of county funds being shared among the libraries.
thank you.
And to follow up on that, if I may, Councillor Bakay, Lisa, how much money was allocated through the county CARES dollars?
I believe it was $15,000.
Thank you.
Now, I will say that our CFO was one of the very first in line for the PPP loan. We filed within the first few hours of the first round, and because of her tenacity and knowledge, we are in better shape than many of the public libraries. So, I mean, we took advantage of everything that we can possibly take advantage of. Again, some of our funding, though, that we usually count on through grants from various foundations, we did not get this year because, rightly so, they went to funding COVID-related issues that we may not have.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from other members of council?
I have a quick
Just a
question.
comment, Councillor Bakay, if I may.
I'm gonna, Councilor Garcia Molina, I heard just a split second before you. Councilor Arroyo, go ahead, Councilor Garcia Molina.
Thank you, Councillor. I also just wanted to thank you so much for the work that you do. I often think about how the library is the only place left where you're not expected to buy something in order to be present in that spot. And that uniqueness is something that we should preserve and support as much as we can. So I really appreciated your presentation because it also brought light to me, just even more incredible how the work it is that you do. And I believe last year the city supported you with $100,000, if I'm correct.
Correct.
I didn't necessarily hear how much it is that you're looking for us to support you this year. Is there an amount that you're looking for, or like specifically how much more are you looking for our support with? And I know that's a tough question, but.
Sure, I can answer, and I will also have Alyssa chime in, but I would say what the number one thing is, we understand there's going to be so much uncertainty moving forward, and we have done well with fundraising this year, but again, had to cancel a number of events. So losing out on some of that money that we normally would bring in each year. Looking to 2021, who knows if it's going to be better or worse. And so having that certainty of knowing that we're in the budget for next year is the first ask.
Great.
Melissa, do you have anything to add to that?
Obviously, we would be thrilled if you held it. Even if you increased it, we would be even more excited. And as Jamie said, because of different funding that we took advantage of, we are probably going to end the year in fairly good shape, considering. We are concerned about next year. We don't know where the municipalities will fall. We expect state funding to probably be decreased. I don't know where county funding is coming in. So, you know.
Great. Yeah, and I also, no, and I hear you completely on that, of like priority is making sure that we remain loyal and supportive. But also I want to invite you, if there's anything that council can do as a body to support you with at the county level, to make sure that that's more equitable as well, like, please let us know.
That's very appreciated.
That is something that if at some point we could talk about, that would be lovely. Lancaster is a unique situation how the money is divided out. And we don't have, the system is part of the county. So, you know, it's stepping on areas that we're not supposed to be stepping on. So to have a resource behind us would be lovely.
Great. Thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much.
Councilor Baker, if I could just add one bit of information in answer to that question about the allocation of the county's CARES Act funding to the libraries around the county. The total amount of that the county commissioners allocated to libraries in Lancaster County was $461,265. Of that, $259,765 went to the Lancaster County library system. And then 13 individual libraries, regardless of size, got $15,500. You can make your own determinations about equitable allocations from those numbers.
I appreciate you digging into that in real time, Mr. Hopkins. Thank you very much. Councilor Arroyo, unless Councilor Garcia Molina saw your question, please go ahead.
Just more of a comment, and I'll piggyback off of Councilor Garcia Molina's comments. I just wanted to thank Ms. Holland and Ms. Hall for the presentation, and obviously for all the great work that you guys are doing. And I'm looking very much forward to the new building once that's up. So thank you for all that you do.
Thank you. I will say I'm still packed and ready to move.
Yes, we're just as excited, if not more excited than you are, I promise.
Terrific. So there's no specific action that the Finance Committee needs to take, but I will take this moment to mention two things that are kind of tangential to this. The first of which is that there is a budget meeting that will dig into this and all things budget on Saturday, December 5th, the first Saturday in December. So anyone who is interested in these types of conversations and more can join us at that meeting. Also, the second thing that I will mention is that there's no action that we need to take on this either, but we have a final vote on an item that's related to financing for the parking garage on Christian Street, which is somewhat related to the construction of the new library. And that will come up at our next full council meeting. We had a first reading of that at the last meeting and a special meeting of this committee to discuss it prior to that. So just a reminder, no actual discussion on our agenda. And with that, Mr. Vice President, that concludes the Finance Committee this evening.
Thank you to Councilor Benkei. And at this time, I turn it over to Councilor Craig for the Community Planning Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Community planning has several items on the agenda this evening. One being the comprehensive planning process update. And I'm going to assume Patrick is here to do that, or Chris.
Patrick is here, but not to do that. Chris is here to do that.
Well, I knew it had to be one of the two. Hi, Chris.
I was about to hand it off to you. That sounded pretty good. Thank you, Councilor Craig. I appreciate the intro. Yes, we're going to give an update tonight about the comp plan project and our scoping process thus far. This has been sort of a long time coming to speak with you all about this. So excited to give you at least the first bits of information. We're going to have a lot of conversations about comp plan for the next couple of years. So we're not going to fit in everything tonight, but definitely want to paint the picture or set the stage for you all. I am going to share my screen. Let's see if this works. Okay, did that work?
Yes.
Bear with me. I'm going to see if I can go to slideshow. Okay, are we all set?
Looks like it.
Okay, very good. Well, as I noted, we're going to give you a little bit of information about the comp plan update process here. We've got three main goals for tonight. First, we want to give an overview about what a comprehensive plan is and what it does, the work that we have done to date in the city administration, and then next steps. What is a comprehensive plan? There are a lot of different ways to look at a comprehensive plan, but I think the most important of which is to view it really as a community consensus. It's a plan that reflects that set of aspirations and priorities for a community and provides direction for future growth and development in our city. And the timeline is usually about 20 years. A comprehensive plan, you may have heard me speak about this in the past. Typically, a comprehensive plan focuses on geographic elements of the city, and it also focuses on topical elements of the city as well. Some of the most important pieces of the comprehensive plan you can see here focuses on land use, which is usually central to a comprehensive plan, transportation, community facilities, parks and open space, natural environment, and economic development being some of the major disciplines that we're going to dive into as we move forward with the plan. Okay. Two other important things to note here. A comprehensive plan is really at its heart, it's a policy document for the city, but it's a policy document that integrates a number of different aspects of the development process, and as I mentioned before, aspirations for the city. It's a policy document that is also ultimately legislatively adopted by the council. So a comp plan is really supposed to be the foundation or the underpinning for zoning and land development ordinances. It is a statement of community development objectives. That's the way it's phrased in the in Pennsylvania's municipal planning code. It also establishes the official map for the city. Most comprehensive plans, whether it's here in Pennsylvania or other places in the country, typically have a future land use map as well. In addition to zoning being one major way to implement the comprehensive plan, the other major way, or one of the other major ways, is the CIP or capital improvement plan. So the idea is the comp plan is supposed to help us decide where we want to spend our capital dollars in the future as well. Just a few notes here about how we are planning, meaning what is our approach or philosophy to the comprehensive plan. We have done some early engagement through our scoping process thus far, and wanted to emphasize that the community objectives that we determine and core values for the plan, we will refine these through our community engagement process. Really first identify them and then refine them, but we're going in with a premise here. And the first premise is that underlying the work that we do as a department is our core values for the city, which are quality, teamwork, integrity, and respect. And layered on top of that, wanted to share that in our early engagement with a handful of community groups. We spoke with Community Action Partnership. We spoke with Lancaster City Alliance. We actually, quite a long time ago, spoke with President Smith-Waddell and the Planning Commission about what should we make sure that we did in the comprehensive plan process as a project and our approach to that project. And the other values that we heard were equity, participatory planning, evidence-based planning, meaning that we were using data, sharing data with our stakeholders, and then using that data to make good decisions. Implementation focused, meaning that we don't want to just create a plan that is unrealistic, that ultimately sits on the shelf. And then finally, supporting intermunicipal cooperation. We, as you probably know, the county completed its comprehensive plan in 2018, Places 2040, and we want to make sure that as best we can, that those two plans are dovetailing together. This next slide focuses on who is included in the process. In short, this should be everyone and anyone who wants to contribute to this process. From the beginning of the scoping of this plan, we have internally talked about engagement, meaningful engagement being central to this being a success. So as we move ahead with the plan, and we'll hire a consultant team to help us with this process, we are going to be focused first and foremost on reaching all of our residents who want to participate. It is important to note here that the comp plan process is going to be, by its nature, complex and technical. There's going to be a lot of work that's happening. So we're going to have to establish a structure for the way we do our engagement. You can see here that the three main categories that we're thinking as organizing principles are our community members and businesses, community organizations, and then government organizations. In some cases, we have organizations that are really focused on the city itself, and then in some cases, we have organizations that span across the county as well. And we want to make sure that we're speaking to all of those groups. Okay, a few more words about structure. We, in addition to the groups of stakeholders that we'll be interacting with, we also recognize that we will need some key representatives to help us steer or shape the plan. We have decided to form a comprehensive plan committee as that core entity that will serve as a link between the plan update process and the city's neighborhoods and businesses and local government. In addition to that, we'll also have what we'll call technical advisory boards. As I mentioned earlier, we'll have a number of topics in the plan, such as transportation, natural environment, and we want to make sure that we're leveraging the expertise in those specific areas. So we're going to have technical advisory boards for each one of those elements. And then in addition to that, we're going to have an interdisciplinary team within city government. It will be led by our department, Community Planning and Economic Development, but it will bring in Department of Neighborhood Engagement, Public Works, et cetera, et cetera. Sorry, bear with me. I'm looking at two screens here to make sure I have all the information in front of me. Okay. I wanted to say a few more words about the Comp Plan Committee itself. This is something that we're really proud of the work that's happened over the last several months. We have been working in concert with Lancaster City Alliance to transform, really reimagine the neighborhood executive leadership team that the City Alliance has managed for quite some time, and to orient that group to help steer the comp plan for the duration of the work. We've also made some changes to the makeup of that committee. So we have some participants who are organizational representatives who will continue. We also have pulled in, thanks to Milsey Carrasco's good work, we pulled in some of the neighborhood leaders and representatives of all four quadrants of the city into that comp plan committee. And then we're also going to have a few local government committee members as well. Douglas Smith, as a chief planner, will really be the one orchestrating that from the city side. This next slide might be the most important here in the presentation. It really tries to give a sense of where we are headed over a pretty long period of time. It is a roadmap for the project, just in terms of broad brush strokes. We've been engaged over the last year in 2020 and what we've called phase one, really the runway to the plan. It is important to note that there's a lot of work that happens in advance of a comp plan starting. So even though pandemic and other challenges have slowed us down a little bit, we've actually made pretty good progress this year as intended. We have gotten, we have been able to do some of this early engagement that I've mentioned with some key groups. We haven't really broadened it yet to city residents, but that will be, as I said, central to the plan moving ahead. We've also thought a lot about the project scope and project design, and we are at probably 90–95% of a scope of work right now. We started doing internal data gathering for the plan, and also, as I mentioned, we've created this comp plan committee. We've also been working on a funding structure that includes grant money in addition to some of the funds that have been in the city budget as well. That's phase one. In phase two, we'll be hiring a consultant team and getting the project off the ground. Phase three is really the heart of the engagement and the planning process. That will occur between spring of 2021 and spring of 2022. And ultimately, we'll be aiming for adoption through City Council sometime in mid 2022 to the fall 2022. This timeline will be somewhat fluid depending on some of the challenges we continue to face with the pandemic, et cetera. But I think we're going to try to stick to this game plan as best we can. This slide here shows a table. It's got a lot of detail, so I think I'm just going to back out for a second and note that we will be applying the International Association for Public Participation framework to all of the work that we do. So the framework here shows that there's a ladder of engagement: inform, consult, involve, and collaborate. And happy to come back to this with any council members at a later time in detail. I think the upshot here is that we're really trying to challenge ourselves to work with community members and community organizations in this collaborate space, really trying to make sure that we're in the realm of best practice when it comes to civic engagement. I mentioned a few moments ago that we have been seeking grant funding for the comprehensive plan. Want to give thanks to the work that Douglas Smith and Joe Landis and Millsy have been doing on this front. The more that we can find in grant money means the more that we can save from the city's general fund, which is very important right now. We're looking at, as you can see here, we're hoping to draw funds both from federal, state, and from private sources as well. In closing, just wanted to share where we're headed at this moment in time. We're in October, and the intent for our request for proposals and for bringing a consultant team on board is to happen probably late this year, early 2021. In addition to that big milestone, we have also been in the process of finalizing a contract with a facilitator to play that role with the comp plan committee to make sure that we're really emphasizing the ability for all people at the table to contribute their voices to the plan. We also have engaged the Center for Regional Analysis to do a housing study that will act as an input into the comprehensive plan work. And then finally, just wanted to note that you've heard the mayor and other leadership at the city talk about the diversity, equity, and inclusion work that we're doing as part of our team related to our staff and our human resources, and we really want to expand that outward and extend that that terrific work and the principles of that work to the comp plan process itself. So that stay tuned for more information on that front as well. So that's what we've have for you so far. And as I said, we'll look forward to providing other updates as we go, and welcome any questions. Mr. Smith is here as well. He's also been a big part of this, so he may want to jump in and answer questions too, depending on what we get.
Well, thank you, Chris. Certainly sounds like you've been busy little beavers working at our comprehensive plan. So it's good to hear that that the stakeholders groups have been somewhat formed, neighborhood engagement, project design, data gathering, and also you've touched on funding. At this time, I don't have any questions, but I would like to open it up to the committee. So if anybody on the committee has any questions at this point, I would offer that.
I don't have a question, Counselor, but I do have a comment, if I may.
Absolutely, go right ahead.
Chris and Douglas, I think that I don't have to say this, but I'm so grateful for the two of you putting this work together, because this is one of the things I've been so excited to be updated on and to see this really come to fruition. So I'm just very grateful right now to see it coming into play, because as Councilor Craig said, it's so obvious how much work and intentionality and thought has been put into how we go about making this plan, that I'm really excited for the next 2 years and what's to come and how that's going to develop, and for us to nerd out on planning. So thank you.
Yes, we've been really excited to nerd out too. We're ready to go. Thank you, Counselor. I really appreciate that.
Are there any other questions from the committee?
If I may, Councilor Craig.
Absolutely, go straight ahead.
Thanks for the presentation, Mr. Delfs. I'm personally very excited about us getting into the comprehensive plan and starting that process. A couple questions. How does this affect some of the plans that the other community stakeholders and other community partners have? So such as like the Building on Strength plan, the One Good Job plan. I know they have different lenses associated to them, but how would those come into play as we start to build off of or start to build out our comprehensive plan? Or is it too soon?
No, that's a great question. And we've actually thought a lot about that and spoken a lot about that with Marshall. I know there's been an effort recently over the last several months to really spend time folding together the Building on Strength and One Good Job plan. And we want to make sure that that work is pulled into the comprehensive plan process as well. Back in my past life, we used to refer to comprehensive plan as the family of plans. And so actually it's meant to act as an umbrella, really a macro level umbrella. So it's very typical to have other plans that that get into more detail and specificity for that specialization. So Building on Strength, for example, may have economic development policies that we're very lucky that those are already present, because it means we're going to be able to take the ones that are still relevant and tie them into the comp plan.
Got it. Thank you. And just a question more out of curiosity than anything. So seeing that it's been quite a while since the last comprehensive plan was done, just kind of looking into the future, thinking of how long it takes for us to get to this, is it possible to start thinking about, and I know we're not done with this one, but potentially the next comprehensive plan as to when we should start thinking about planning stages for the next one, if that makes sense?
Yes.
Just rather waiting
yes.
20-year period.
Yes, so most comprehensive plans have a 20-year time horizon, but they're really intended to be updated more frequently than 20 years. The last comprehensive plan that I worked on had an implementation element to the plan, and it provided some guidance to the city about when would be the appropriate time to update the plan. So for example, it could be, a minor update every 5 years and a major update every 10, or something of that nature. We'd have to come to a conclusion with the community stakeholders and with yourselves, council members. But I think there should be some guidance in the plan about how to update and when.
Perfect.
Great. Awesome. Those are all the questions I had. Thank you. And I'm really excited about this. So thanks for all the work you're putting into it.
Thank you, Councilor Arroyo. At this point, I'll open it up to the rest of council for questions. Hearing none, I'll open that up to the public. If there's anybody from the public that has any questions. I'm not seeing any. So I don't think we need to make a motion or vote on this because it's just an update. Is that correct, Bernie? Okay, so thank you guys. Thank you very much. And we will at this point move on to the next topic, which is Welcoming City Initiative update. I'm looking at my screen here and I think that might be.
Gonna go to.
I can't pronounce your name.
Hi.
Zaira. Got it. Welcome.
Good evening. It is a pleasure and an honor to be here with you tonight to provide you with an update about the Welcoming Cities initiative and certification, and perhaps a little bit about the language access plan for the city of Lancaster.
Thank you. Thank you. Go right ahead.
Again, my name is Zaira Falou. And just as a special note, English is my second language.
You're doing great.
Great. So we're having an agenda here, and we would like to talk a little bit about the welcoming certification process, a little bit about the history, where we're at today, and future program efforts. Great. So the Lancaster, the Welcoming Cities Initiative, I was introduced to the Welcoming Cities Initiative back in April 2019. Now this initiative probably had been in the works long before April 2019, when the Language Access Plan was created by CPED, by the Department of CPED, in order to meet some recommendations for regulation of compliance in their workings, and also in seeking the Welcoming City certification. In September 2019, the city of Lancaster became a certified welcoming city by Welcoming America. And we are very proud of that and very joyful for that. And their certification was granted contingent the implementation of the language access tools and other recommendations based on an audit. On September 22 is when our recertification date is due. And just to let you know, we're well on the way for that recertification. We are on track, on time, and meeting all of our deadlines way ahead of time. Great. So just to tell you a little bit about language access. Language access was a huge portion of our Welcoming City certification. Lots of recommendations there and that we have implemented. It is a very important work that we are working at the City of Lancaster related to the Welcoming Cities Initiative. The Language Access Plan is a plan that is governed by certain laws, federal laws, such as the Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 that prohibits the discrimination based on national origin, race, and other factors. And also another law that governs the language access program is the 2000 Executive Order 13166, which affirms that Title VI language access requirements are actually met by agencies. So apart from the federal laws that govern language access, another great importance of the language access plan is that the language access plan actually reinforces and increases civic participation. And many of our initiatives here at the City of Lancaster are geared towards increasing civic participation. Language access, allowing individuals to participate in their own language is very important, because when a person is welcomed in their own language, then they don't feel excluded. They actually feel embraced and accepted. And it is a lot easier then for you to open up to those that are inviting you to participate in an activity, in a program, or in any initiatives that the city is launching for our community. In addition to that, another great important aspect of language access is resident accountability. So when individuals don't understand the rules, the regulations in their own language, they could possibly not feel accountable because they're not understanding what is being demanded and required of them. And so when guidelines and information is provided to individuals in their own language, then you are exposing them to being responsible for their actions within the city, with their neighbors, and with their personal lives. Also, language access fosters strong neighborhoods. When we are in communications, in an interchange of communication with our residents, being able to communicate in their own native language and fostering and embracing the native language within the community is going to open people to being welcoming to each other, to accept each other and embrace each other. And indeed, it will create strengthening and unity among the people in our city. And finally, our language access also bridges equity and inclusion, which is the foundation of everything that I have talked about. Being welcome, being embraced, being included, being counted for. And these are the fundamental principles that language access actually supports and fosters for our city, for our residents. Just as an understanding of language access, here are some Lancaster City demographics, which I am not able to see because the screen is kind of covering it a little bit. But as we can see, our Lancaster City is a very diverse city. It is composed of not only Hispanics, though we are the largest group within the city, almost 40%. Also, Latinos and Hispanics make up for 5% of the population in the state of Pennsylvania. With regard, nevertheless, we're not the only ethnic group here. There is Asian groups, there's African groups, there is many races, and we are a very fortunate city to have such a wonderful melting pot among us. And that's why we have to consider the importance of language access and the many opportunities that it brings for us to bridge these communications and strengthening our great diverse community. So in 2019, the Neighborhood Engagement Department was charged with the citywide implementation of the Language Access Plan, Language Access Plan tools. Just going back in summary, the Language Access Plan was designed by the CPED department, and it is geared towards providing reasonable accommodations for languages that consist of more than 5% of our population. At the present moment, Spanish is the largest language that is way exceeding that 5% requirement from the HUD department, but there are other languages that are coming close to that requirement at a 2% and at a 3% are the Asian and African language within our communities. So very soon we'll have to start transitioning to other language other than Spanish. Lancaster City is dedicated to providing the LEP population with a reasonable set of tools to access programs and services offered by the City of Lancaster. And also our Language Access Plan prevents the discrimination based on persons' national origin. So in implementing the tools outlined in our Language Access Plan, which are geared towards providing access to services for people. Some of these tools are, we're talking about translation and interpretation services. We're also speaking about some training for our staff. Phase one was a phase in which we did some research and analysis of the needs of the city as well as our staff. Phase two is where we are at today in the implementation of tools, technology, and training. Once phase two is completed, we will be moving possibly for the year 21 with policy metric development and community outreach, and further on data reporting and possibly workplace Spanish. Move forward. So in the beginning of phase one, I wanted to share some important data that we found out through our survey. In August 2019, our survey was administered to 47 participants, mainly of our leadership within the city. And these data reflected that 68% of the responses highlighted Spanish as the most encountered foreign language for our team members. 2% of our team members also encountered languages such as Vietnamese, Hindi, and Nepali. 68% of our participants reported having staff within the department that speak Spanish. But the most incredible finding is that 70% of our staff is actually requesting translation of documents in order to be equitable and inclusive. And only 19% of the participants actually have their documents translated into Spanish. The great news is that we are quickly moving forward to creating a much more inclusive and diverse and equitable city of Lancaster as we move forward to translating many of our program documents for our residents. During the phase two of language access tool implementation, we then implemented tools such as the language line here at the city of Lancaster. It was launched this year, 2020, even in the midst of the pandemic, with a language line that has more than 200 languages available for our staff to communicate with our constituents via telephone via telephone primarily, and in person if they come in person, but our buildings have been closed due to the pandemic. Our provider for the language line is Propio Language, and they are also the provider for all of the Pennsylvania AOPC court system. Also in June 29th, we implemented the translation request system via a unique email, City Language Access at cityoflancasterpa.com, and a special form for requesting those translation requests and needs for everyone's department. In addition to that, CWS is our main provider. However, depending on volume and on technical needs and legality of documents, other agencies may provide services as well. And in doing so, I have developed a bank of providers according to their expertise, licensure, for our needs. In addition to that, part of phase two of our language access plan and welcoming cities is training for the City of Lancaster staff. The training is going to ensure successful and appropriate use of the tools that we're implementing. The language is going to address language line challenges, fears of staff in using the line, is going to address effective communication, is going to also address cultural awareness and bias among our staff. And once again, Church World Service is our training provider. On a special note, this Friday, October 9th, we will be having a pilot training session. If anybody is interested in joining, I'll be more than happy to share the link and the information to join this pilot training session, in which I call it pilot because even though I am coordinating services and this wonderful program for the city, I am not the only one involved. This is everyone's work. We are in this together. And so in saying so, I feel that I need everyone's feedback with regards to the development of a training that is effective, that is successful, and that raises the bar and the standards for our staff in servicing our constituents. In addition to that, we had been communicating information related to language access technology. It is called video remote interpretation, where individuals have access to an interpreter via video, and it can be via cell phone or via iPads that stand on a rolling stand. However, the technology interpretation is on hold due to facilities improvements. And once City Hall facilities improvements are complete, then we will perform another assessment of our needs and then re-inform on those needs and make informed decisions in our purchases and implementations. What we're doing for the year 2021. For future, in the year 2021, the Department of Neighborhood Engagement is looking into a concise budget, translation and interpretation services. We are analyzing the needs of our council public meetings for interpretation and ASL services, as well as the mayor's press conferences for accessibility and language interpretation for our constituents. We're looking into technology for the hearing impaired, and also, like I was mentioning, the video remote interpretation to be implemented here in the different city buildings. Future-wise, also we're looking into possibly Spanish classes. However, that is further down the road, and we continue to need to do some research regarding sponsorship and anything else that might be related to developing a class that will satisfy the needs of our staff. Also, we'll be developing guides with basic words. And of course, we'll continue with cultural awareness training and diversity, equity, and inclusion. We'll be working side by side with the language access program. Moving forward, Milsey may have a word. Milsey?
Zaira, great job. I'm so proud of you. Wasn't that great? We were actually going to start the presentation in Spanish to see how many people could check in or understand what the presentation was. But after nerves, we decided to pause that. But Zaira, really, I can't thank you enough for the work that you're doing and your passion. We can all feel the passion in this work, and you're at the right place at the right time doing the right work. So thank you so much. And all of this work, Zaira and I have been working on a budget. And, this is a lot of work. It's important, and we're all committed on this call to the equity of this work. And so we are going to be asking council for a very small budget related to language access, but a very important one. So a small and mighty one. And so we'll be presenting that at our budget presentations. But thank you so much for your time. And Zaira, thank you so much for your commitment.
Thank you, Milsey. In relation to our in relation to our Welcoming City certification, the only update that I have is that we are well meeting all of our requirements. Right now, in conversations with Welcoming America, once our language access training has been implemented, throughout the city. The requirements are met, and the audit will be closed, and we won't need to look into anything else until the recertification time in the 2022 year.
That's 2 years in advance, you guys. Great work, Zaira.
Thank you for this opportunity, and any questions?
Thank you, bravo. Let me just say, bravo on your presentation. That was very thorough. I'm very happy to hear. I'm just excited about this whole thing. So bravo on being inclusive and covering all that you covered in your presentation tonight. It couldn't have been better. Thank you.
So much.
So at this point, I will open up questions to the committee. If the committee has any questions for Zara or even Milsey.
I don't have a question, just a comment, if I may.
Go right ahead.
Zaira, muchas gracias por todo lo que ha hecho. Because honestly, like, one of the biggest things for me, especially like during my race, was just making sure that my parents could come alongside me for this journey. And that poses a barrier, was just language access, especially at city council meetings. But that was like quickly kind of seen as a challenge, and the city rose to that challenge. And to see how much pride you have in this work, and to see you as a leader of this work, but also giving like space so that this is collective work. Like, I'm just also very proud of you, and I'm really excited to see this unfold even more. Because even when you're talking about language line, like, I know how to use language line, but I get like nervous about it. And so like, even when you specifically mentioned like, we're going to do training so that people aren't scared of language line, like, that's so true. And it's like the little things like that that just makes me so confident that you're the right person to be in this job. So I want to thank you a lot for that.
Oh my goodness, thank you so much. I really appreciate your words. And yes, I am working hard to researching information to present to my director, Milsey Carrasco, and to the council. I am looking into many possibilities and options for interpretation of our council meetings and any public presentation that the city has.
Sigue para adelante. You're doing great.
Gracias.
Thank you. Can we stop sharing the screen?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Perfect.
You see, you're good at that too. Thank you so much. Are there any other questions from the committee?
Hi, yes, Faith. I'd like someone to tell the general public what the welcoming city means. So in case someone out there doesn't understand that.
Go right ahead. Okay.
Maybe Milsey or.
Okay, could you rephrase, is it a question or a comment?
It's a question.
Okay. Yes, I completely agree that we need to inform our community of what welcoming cities is. Are you inquiring as to what is the best way of communicating? Yeah, go ahead, Milsey.
Yeah. So the Welcoming City certification is actually something really special. And to be a city that's certified means that you are actually not only within government, focus on welcoming city standards, welcoming individuals and processes, language access, but you actually are a city of cohort organizations that are working towards becoming more welcoming to refugees, to immigrants that resettle here. So it's really important when we're looking at policies that the policies, how we police, how our organizations are really welcoming to those individuals and resettling them. So not a lot of cities have this opportunity to be certified. And if you are certified, that means that you're at a much higher standard than other cities on really being at the forefront of this collaborative of organizations working towards being more welcoming. And that could be through resettlement, that could be through policies in government, that could be through language access, just what are we doing collaboratively in the city to support resettlement of families?
Thank you, Mosey.
Thank you, Mills.
Councilor Craig,
Yes, President.
may I?
You may.
Thank you. Millsy, Zaira, I did manage to get on in time to catch your presentation. I'll just echo what Councilor Garcia Molina said. This is very important, and you've certainly risen to the challenge. Can I know from personal experience, and I'm sure many of us do, many of the city's business owners and contractors and homeowners are primary Spanish speakers. And perhaps I missed it during the presentation. Are we making moves toward making, say, permitting and housing inspection, like services and processes related to that, available in Spanish?
Absolutely. Actually, I missed mentioning that in the phase 2, where we're speaking about translation services, I am actually in the process of assessing departments for translation of vital documents. A vital document is any document that grants access to a program, service, that informs of a program, or that provides notice of a status of a program, notice perhaps of a violation, or notice of public safety. And so right now, this week, I analyzed, for example, our website, and I identified 57 PDF documents that are actually considered vital documents that I would consider that it's important to have those available for individuals in Spanish and perhaps other languages. Moving forward, we will also be analyzing the codes department is first in line, as well as the housing department, because and also treasury and the council meetings for translation and interpretation services to grant quick and effective accessibility to our residents.
Thank you, Zaira.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councilor Craig.
And I just want to, if I may, Councilor Craig.
Yes, please. Go, Mayor.
Just to say thank you. We really were starting with a very, haphazard sort of not recognizing the translation services that were required, and individual staff who were bilingual were often just being pulled in and not being recognized within their job descriptions or being compensated for the language and the translation skills that they were providing. And so to get us to the point where welcoming cities really became a gateway for us to be thinking about language access, and the work that Zaira has taken to get us to this point. And as you heard Millsy say, we're ahead of the curve in terms of our certification, while also recognizing that we have a mountain, because you also just heard there are 57 documents that need to be translated. That Zaira has been working so hard to do all of the translation and helping us access additional translation resources. She's also prepared little packets of information related how to use the language line. And Zaira, I wanted to tell you that I used Proprio a couple of weeks ago to speak to a resident who is a renter who is having a problem related to their a problem with their landlord and inspection, and it worked beautifully. And I just want to acknowledge that there's a lot of work ahead of us, and we have come really so far, and appreciate the work of the Language Access Plan and the connections to literally every department and neighborhood engagement are just so clear to me. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Sarachi, for your kind words and for the appreciation.
Thank you. Councilor Arroyo, did you have a comment or question?
Yes, if I may. First, thank you, Zaida and Milsey. I'm always impressed by what you all are able to do with very limited resources, and you guys just keep adding to that list. So thank you for all that you do, especially with this program. Just out of curiosity, have there been any community partners or stakeholders that have reached out either to assist with this program or were interested in how we're implementing it to potentially scale it on their end or participate? Has there been any outreach in that area?
We are in the beginning stages of the program. However, it is on the agenda to conduct community outreach and also stakeholder advocacy for the future. Therefore, I haven't had much encounters related to your question, except for that a local attorney had actually been offering to providing support to our police and fire members in providing them or teaching them Spanish related to emergency communications, so that and that is something that they were offering to do it free. And it's something that though needs to be coordinated and thought about thoroughly before it is implemented or before this person is allowed to come in and do as they wanted to.
Counselor, may I also add some comments to that? We have reached out to partners to look into best practices. And since we're still in the process of setting up all these processes and looking at some policies right now, that's actually what we're doing. We haven't come alongside to work with partners, but that is part of like the outreach that Zaira has mentioned. But we have worked with and researched with other partners, how they're doing it, what are those best practices, and that actually drove a lot of the work that we're doing and continues to drive the work that we're doing.
Milsey, I have a question, if I may. Has this been presented at all to the community? I mean, to the county?
Not from my end. However, I've been in communications with the language access coordinator for our county court system. They were actually the informing force about the language line provider, and they were a very resource team person here in the county for me and for the city.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more questions from the committee as a whole? I will entertain questions from the public if there are any. Don't think so. So I don't think there's any action that we need to take on this because it was an update. Thank you guys for a wonderful presentation. Dara, bravo.
Thank you for this wonderful opportunity. I would have never imagined it, but I am more than grateful and look forward to providing you any updates and information related to language access.
Thank you. Very exciting. At this point, I'd like to move on to our next item on the agenda, which is Administration Bill number 10, amending the subdivision and land development ordinance. Douglas, I saw you pop on there.
Hi, good evening, counselors. Good to see you all. And I'm going to try to walk you through this quickly but thoroughly. And I believe you all have the materials, especially the memo on the land development amendment. I'd like to start there, and I can just walk through the main bullets. But in brief, I just want to say that this amendment has been, we've been working on this for roughly the last year with the Planning Commission and various planning staff. It kept getting put on hold because of various priorities. But the overall goal with these amendments is really to bring our land development ordinance, which was last amended in 2015, up to current standards with a variety of other planning initiatives that we have going on in the city right now, namely our active transportation plan, our revised stormwater plan, the upcoming tree plan, which you're going to hear about later, and then also making some updates to the ordinance that are more current under COVID, with less of an emphasis on paper and more of an emphasis on digital submissions. And then I would say, finally, the other big addition is really trying to document some of the benefits that are being experienced, or some of the benefits that the community may experience from these developments. So just to walk you through that a little bit more thoroughly, and I want to make note that I'm going to draw your attention to a couple of edits that I would like for us to consider this evening, and I can explain to you how that might move forward if you all are in support of this amendment. So first, with the proposed changes, this amendment does include the protection and preservation of natural resources in the purpose statement of the ordinance. This is very much in line with the state municipal planning code. Number two, this amendment, this is actually an addition from the last time we spoke about this, allows for the deferral of subdivision and land development plans to adjoining municipalities under certain conditions. On occasion, there is a parcel that may be in both municipalities, but there may be an instance where the primary taxing municipality is the adjacent one, and we may want to have the flexibility to defer. We have done this in the past, and the Planning Commission has not had any issues with this, but it has never been written into our code. And so just for the sake of transparency, I'd like to codify that process so that everyone is aware of when we can and when we can't defer land development. Sometimes it's an administrative burden and there's not much to be gained by the city reviewing a plan. In other instances, the stakes might be high. So that discretion is really currently with the Planning Bureau and in the way that this is amended. If you have any questions, just please stop me along the way. It might be easier to take things as we're talking through them. Number three is the update submission requirements to emphasize digital. I mentioned that. Number four, and this is going to require a little bit more discussion and is maybe one of the most interesting amendments here. We're proposing to require developers to submit a community benefits survey prior to plan recordation that explains how the development addresses mixed income housing, sustainable design, vibrant streetscape, transportation choice, and economic opportunities. I think that we have all wanted to see the community benefits of development projects grow and be more of an emphasis, but we are restrained in many ways by our state code in accomplishing that. And I have to give a lot of credit to Department Director Chris Delfs and also Barry Handwerger, our solicitor, for working with me on finding a creative way to accomplish this. This is really something that Chris has been developing over time with developers and testing out in our preliminary discussions. And we want to be able to better track what is happening in our city, especially regarding housing. And this provides us a way of asking developers to show the due diligence that they have done on a project to make sure that that we're really asking all we can of developers in terms of affordable housing. I'm happy to open that up and we can discuss it, but in short, and I'll take the time to propose the amendment to what I've given you this evening, the amendment to the amendment. So right now, the version that you have includes this survey as an attachment to the ordinance. After some discussion, especially with Barry, it has been suggested that we should not have this attached to the ordinance, but instead have it be a survey that can be amended by the department director from time to time. And I think this provides a lot more flexibility for us to make changes to this survey as we test it out, because this is a very unique tool. And I'm not familiar with any other municipalities that are administering these surveys in quite the same way that we're proposing here. And I think that there's a lot of benefit here. And since I saw Chris's video pop on here, I'm wondering if you'd like to say a few words about this tool, Chris.
Douglas, I am not going to interrupt you. You're doing a great job. I just popped my video on in case there are any questions.
Okay.
Keep on trucking.
So
Awesome.
I do kind of have a question. I don't want to interrupt you too much. So the attachment would be for a developer plan that is going to implement, or we would be able to find out if they're going to implement some sort of affordable housing in their plan prior to going to any other department.
Partly. Can I sketch that process out a little bit more for you, Counselor?
Yep.
So the way that this would work is it only applies to final plans. So that would exclude minor projects in the city where someone has a building that maybe they're adding a commercial space to or something like that. But for final plans where there's a significant number of units or new construction, we would move through the entire approval process. Planning Commission would vote and say approve it. They would meet all conditions of the plan and say, okay, we're ready to pick up our signed plans and record. And that's when I would say, well, you have to complete this survey for us. And the survey, there are some things that we already know about the housing in the plan, but there are other aspects that the survey gets to that may not be revealed in the recorded plan. So for instance, did the developer entertain the idea of affordable housing? And if so, what tools did they look at and why wasn't it feasible? And this allows us to understand more about the climate of housing in our city and what developers are considering or not. And I think the neat thing about this is they will have the survey in advance of completing the project, and they'll be aware of the kinds of questions that we're asking and interested in. So it can become a discussion point, for the Planning Bureau with these developers as we work on the projects. And I do think that it's also a good way for us to consolidate our data tracking. So it would be a lot of work, for instance, for our bureau to comb through every plan that comes in and sort of fill out the spreadsheet to keep track of some of these things. And we would also lose, I think, the conversational part with the developer, some of the qualitative evidence that they might want to offer about the process. So this is a way that we can consolidate all of the data in one place and not have it affect our decision for the plan, because by state code, we can't deny a project because it doesn't have affordable housing. But at the end, we want to understand why there wasn't affordable housing or how they achieved the affordable housing that they provided, so we can share that as best practice to other developers in our community.
Thank you.
Douglas, if I could just add, will probably only take me a minute, Councilor Craig, if you don't mind. Just wanted to add that this survey, which happens at the back end of the process, is a bookend to the priorities that we lay out as an administration and a department at the front end. So when we first meet with a developer and talk about a concept, we encourage certain priorities. And so we're able to say, these are the things that are important to City Council. These are the things that are important to the city administration and that we're trying to achieve. Now, they're not always required. Developers are not always required to achieve every one of those elements, but we're able to say up front, at the end of this process, you're going to have to be very clear cut about what you were able to do and what you were not able to do and why. And ultimately, that gives us a lot of power because we're able to collect that information and actually feed it into the comprehensive plan process. We're going to have a lot of knowledge through these community surveys that we can utilize in making policy during the comp plan and looking ahead into the future. So we're trying to be as creative as we could here, and just follow the good practice that we've been doing over the past year with developers.
Much appreciated.
Thank you, Chris. It's also important to note that the form that you have right now that is labeled as the attachment or an appendix to the saldo, that survey is very much in redesign. Me, Chris, and Barry sort of all arrived at this solution literally a day before the Planning Commission. They had talked about it previously with us, and so they were a little bit surprised that we found a creative solution. And so I scurried to pull together a first draft of the survey, and they approved this saldo amendment, knowing that it was going to be refined later on. So I just want you to say that I want you to know that this is a tool that we think is very powerful, and we're taking a lot of time and attention to craft it as best as we can. And I'm also very excited that we have a new planner on staff, Emma Hum, who has been with county planning for the last 13 years, is now on staff for the Planning Bureau. And she has some expertise in housing as well. And she's taken this on as one of her early projects, and she's done a fantastic job already. I've seen a couple drafts, and I really feel like it's headed in a great direction. So I'm happy to take any other questions on that as they arise, but I'll just keep moving through these proposed amendments for sake of time here.
Absolutely.
So number 5, we have included some minor adjustments to our lighting design, and this is really to avoid any nuisance glare or light pollution, including a possible requirement of vegetative screening. Currently, we don't have any provisions for that. We'd also like to require a portion of native plants and trees in all landscape plan submissions and prohibit the use of species that are designated as invasive or emerging invasive species, according to the state of Pennsylvania. I know that this issue is near and dear to some counselors' hearts, and so I'm very excited to bring this to you. This is another area where I'd like to draw your attention to a small change that I hope that you'll welcome. So I have, since sending this to you, I have talked to a number of landscape architects that I work with through plan review to get some additional input on this. We started with the idea that we would require 50% natives for all landscaping outside of the right-of-way. This was initially received very well by people, but when it got to the Shade Tree Commission and Planning Commission, there was a push to raise that percentage higher to 75%. After some additional discussion with those landscape architects, I'd like to recommend that we bring it back to the 50% that we started with. I think that there was a compelling case made on a number of fronts, and I'm very much a native plant advocate. But I think the case was partly cultural, which I found very compelling, that it may not be entirely appropriate for us to have 75% natives if that is not necessarily inclusive of a variety of people who live in Lancaster from other places, as well as the harsh and urban environment sometimes doesn't always allow for natives to thrive in certain conditions. So there was a little bit of pushback saying we want to incorporate natives, we think we can do this, but 50% is more reasonable. So with your approval of those two amendments, those two edits to what I've given you, I think that what we could do is I could provide the amended text at a council meeting that this might be forwarded to, and that would need to be in a public hearing, so I can make it clear what is being proposed for adoption. So just a bit of housekeeping there for you to consider. Any questions regarding the native species? Otherwise, I'll keep moving on. Okay, awesome. So we're also expanding the requirement for street trees along all public right-of-ways. Currently, street trees are only required when sidewalk is replaced, which means that we miss some opportunities for additional trees in the city when the sidewalks are already there, but we still may want trees. We are also expanding the topics requiring an environmental impact report to include surface water, steep slopes, and historical cultural sites designated by the state or federal government. Number 9, we're aligning bicycle and pedestrian standards with the city's active transportation plan and best practices. This includes widening our sidewalk requirement from 4 feet to 5 feet, which is where federal guidelines are going. And also requiring that in some cases a bicycle or pedestrian trail easement be created according to that adopted plan. These amendments also resolve several technical issues that are really mundane, so I'm going to move on from that, but happy to elaborate if need be. And finally, number 11 is providing a template community benefits survey. This is the template that I'm asking that we not include as an attachment to the ordinance, but I did want you to see something and the kinds of questions we were asking. And so I'd ask that the department continue to allow to refine that as a survey that's amended time to time outside of the ordinance. So that concludes my overview. I'm happy to dig into any of the text or answer questions about these proposed amendments.
Spectacular. Are there any questions from the committee?
Yes, Councilor.
Can we do the community planning committee first?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Craig?
Go ahead.
Mr. Smith, thank you. Mr. Smith, for the community benefits survey, I know you mentioned there's going to be some refinements. Later on, is that a document that can continue to receive refinements without having to come to council for any like amendments or changes?
Yes, that is our goal. So the amended ordinance text that I would provide, instead of saying, see attachment 5, it would say, fill out the survey that from time to time may be amended, or fill out the community benefits survey that may be amended from time to time by the Department Director of Community Planning and Economic Development. So it still names an authority who can amend that ordinance, but it does take it out of the realm of council's approval, which I think can make it a little bit more cumbersome and more difficult to amend. And I think we see benefit in being more nimble and responsive with it as projects come in.
Great, thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Molina? Nothing? I will open it up to the rest of council for questions. Councilor Diaz?
Yes, I was curious to know in reference to urban trees. Has anyone ever thought about putting them, and I don't know what type of ordinance or what is required, but I was curious to know if you can put them in some of the cemeteries in Lancaster?
That's a good point. I think that there's lots of opportunity there. And so this ordinance would just govern land development plans or subdivision plans that come in. So unless a cemetery were somehow doing one of those two things, I'm not sure that this would be the place to encourage that. Generally, many of these ordinances may grandfather properties in, so I'd have to give some thought to how we might encourage that. I will say that I have personally, with the Lancaster Tree Tenders, engaged the Lancaster Cemetery over the years, and along Lime Street, they were generous enough to install about 12 new trees around their property. They were somewhat reluctant to plant inside the cemetery, but I thought it was really generous that they offered volunteers and space along their property to plant 10. I'd be happy to connect you with the Lancaster Tree Tenders as a means of facilitating that conversation.
The reason I say that is because I've been in other countries and it looks like a forest, and so it's very it's kind of like a place where people can go and visit their family, but at the same time have that escape, and it's very beautiful. Just a thought, and sure, if you can connect me, that would be great. Thank you.
Will do.
Thank you.
Councilor Craig, if I may.
Absolutely, President. Go ahead.
Just as a note to you, Councilor Diaz, that's actually in line with the history of the cemetery in American urban life. So that's a worthwhile point. Mr. Stelf and Smith, first of all, thank you. I'm really pleased to see the inclusion of a community benefit document. So where will this, if it exists as a reference in the actual ordinance, but is not an exhibit to the ordinance, where will the referent live in a continuous fashion?
Fair question. My thought, and Chris, I welcome you weighing in on this too, is that the current version live on the website and with the office of the city clerk. So comparable documents to this might be something like the stormwater program management, I'm not sure what they call it, document that outlines the procedures for certain stormwater functions. Engineering standards are another example that are not an ordinance, but we maintain currency for, and the city engineer is the authority for that. So I don't think it's uncharacteristic for the department director in this case to be that person, but I'm open to other places that it might live.
Well, you actually said something that I think works for me very neatly, which, and I can't speak to the opinions of the rest of council, but that document, when updated, that an updated copy would live, I guess, in two places, one with the office of the CPED director and with the office of the city clerk. And I think what you said about that document being nimble is important to me, but I think it would also be important to council for us to be aware of changes to that document as it is being changed. Does that make sense?
Yes, that does. That's a good point. And we certainly do want you to stay in the loop on the kinds of things we're tracking. So thanks for that.
Generally speaking, the documents that are on file with the city clerk, excuse me, are static documents. I mean, once an ordinance is adopted, then the attachments therewith are filed away. If it's a living document, it would generally stay with the department head.
Thank you. That's all I had, Councilor Craig.
Thank you, Council President. Are there any further questions from the committee as a whole? I'll entertain questions from the public. I don't think we have any. Is there any further information that you need to provide us with, Douglas?
Not on this matter right now. I'll get Bernie the amended ordinance with those minor changes, and I'll make sure to have that ready for any first reading, which I would suggest also be the public hearing at that time.
Thank you. So I'm going to make a motion that we move this with the necessary amendments to council on the 13th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm sorry, Counselor, one additional bit of information on the date. In order for the first meeting to be the public hearing, we have to meet our advertising requirements for 2 consecutive weeks prior to that public hearing. If the first reading were to be on October 27th, I believe that would give us enough time to publish on the 2 Mondays leading up to that. And then the second reading would be the advertisement of the ordinance itself. So I hope that makes sense. And I'm sorry I didn't include that detail in advance.
It does. So we need to change that a little bit, I guess. Make a motion to the bill, and have the first reading on the 27th, move it to full council on the 27th of October.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you, Douglas.
Thank you, Counselor.
Thank you. Our next item on the agenda is resolution number 52, setting fees for subdivisions and land planning review. Take it away, Douglas.
Okay, will do. So I have been revising or proposing a revision to our subdivision and land development fees. The last time that these fees were updated was in 2012, quite some time ago. Since that last update, quite a bit has changed at the city, including the development of the stormwater ordinance, the formation of the Stormwater Bureau as well, and a more coordinated land development system as well. And so all of that has, and not to mention costs have increased across the board, as you can imagine, over the last 8 years. So this fee resolution is proposed to really bring our fees current with our costs between planning and Department of Public Works for the reviews that we do. I believe that Mr. Harris provided you with a table that shows the estimated number of hours that each of the staff spend on different types of land development reviews and requests, as well as the current fee, and then what the proposed would be after crunching those numbers. In most cases, we took a round number closest to the proposed cost. In a couple instances, in order to manage the increase in costs. In one instance, in fact, we did not take the full cost. We actually went a bit lower than that. And part of this was, it would have been a pretty exorbitant increase. And I also think that there's quite a bit of variation in terms of the plans when we're creating a cost based on per page fee. So I did my best to sort of strike a balance between our costs and reasonability. I'll also add that I did a comparison between Lancaster and a variety of other municipalities in Lancaster and a couple other third-class cities. And I found these proposed fees to be very much in line with, and I think still actually more affordable than many of the other municipalities in the surrounding area. Some of the municipalities that I looked at, and I'm happy to answer any specific questions, looked at West Lampeter, Manor Township, Lancaster Township, Manheim Township, East Hempfield, West Donegal, West Reading, and Allentown. I had some difficulty finding some of the fees. Oh, and York. York City had not amended their land development fees since 1993. Just a bit of trivia. I was amazed by that. So with all that,
they have a more recent comprehensive plan. So you know.
Oh darn! I can't win them all, I guess. So I feel confident that what we've proposed here for various kinds of requests is very much reasonable, and I think will help us recoup our costs better here. So happy to answer any specific questions you might have about this.
Thank you, Douglas. Questions from the committee? Questions from the committee as a whole?
Ms. Craig, if I could add one thing very briefly.
Yes.
Douglas is known for being exceptionally polite and diplomatic, which is one of his real talents and attributes. I will put a finer point on this and say we do try to be very customer friendly in our fees and our service. Our customers here are getting one incredible deal right now. Just as a little anecdote, our new senior planner, Emma, got here from the county and said, how in the world are you doing all of this work with no people? And so it is really a credit to what Douglas has been pulling off. And we want to make sure that we start to align fees with what it actually costs to run this bureau. So this is going to come back up in budget very, very soon.
And if I could piggyback on that. So when we set fees, one of the legal basis for a fee is that it cannot be set above what it actually costs to provide the service. And so that's the analysis that Douglas went through. I had a bunch of review with Barry Handwerger to make sure that we were sort of complying with that aspect. This is something that we're also looking to do on a more citywide basis. We have a firm that we use for allocation of our CDBG and ESG program dollars to pay for administrative costs that are budgeted in the general fund. We're looking to have that same firm come in early in 2021 to do a full citywide fee study. So the work that Douglas did is sort of on a focused area within the planning, zoning, that area. We'll have Maximus come back in and take a look at everything and including these. So it may be that in 2021, we also come back with potential modification on any of these fees if they find something in their review. And a lot of it goes into the same types of things Douglas talked about in terms of how long does it actually take a city staff person to go through and review a general plan. The concept here is that if we're not setting fees for specialized services like this at a level that it actually costs to provide that service, that means general taxpayers are subsidizing that service. So if you think of a developer coming in with a major project that takes dozens and dozens of city staff hours to review for their particular project, if the fees don't actually cover the cost of that review, Joe taxpayer is essentially subsidizing that service, and we want to have that subsidy limited as much as possible.
Yeah, I really appreciate the guidance, Patrick, that you and Barry have given Douglas and I on this recently. And I appreciate you broadening my comments about the good deal.
Yeah, that is all really helpful information, Patrick. And I'll be eager for the consultant's assessment. There were some things that I didn't feel quite so brave to do here, but I see opportunities. You know, a lot of other municipalities actually charge a sizable escrow fee so that if their reviews ever go over their allotted or their estimate, they can charge that time back. You know, that was something I wasn't quite willing to get into at this stage, but seeing that we have so much development going on in the city right now, I really felt like it was important to balance this out a little bit better. So looking forward to further refinement of this.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Patrick, thank you for that detailed information there. Love it. Are there any questions from the committee? No? Any questions from the rest of council?
Yes, if I may, I just had a question related to, do we have the fee amount, or is that something they're still working on?
So the fee amount was provided in the materials sent by Mr. Harris, and the document is titled Basis for Proposed Saldo Fee. I can certainly give you more detail on that now if you need, Councilor Diaz.
Yeah, I'm having a bit of issues trying to open it.
I can, I have it in front of me. I could share the screen if you wanted to look at the increases.
Yeah, if you can, please.
Sure. Give me one moment. Okay, so there are different kinds of plans that we've estimated for here. First one being the minor plan, which tends to be a small addition, for instance. The proposed fee is $475 for filing. The existing fee is $375, so there's a 27% increase from 2012. Our subdivision only plan, which includes 2 sheets, we're raising from 375 to 525, so 40% increase there. We charge also a sheet fee for both subdivision and minor plans, and we're raising this from 75 to 125, so 67% increase there. For final land developments, and these tend to be the larger plans, there's a proposed base fee of $1,000. Our existing fee is $450. This is the most substantial increase that we're proposing because of the level of review that these types of plans take. So for instance, you might have heard that mosaic proposed by Willow Valley at the corner of Vine and Queen was approved for 20 stories. And that plan would be filing under this fee, for instance. So we do require a substantial amount of review for that type of plan, and also added stormwater since 2012, which has increased our costs here. So that I hope explains a little bit about why that fee increased so much. And then we get into a page per sheet fee, starting at 75 right now. We're proposing this be increased to 200, again, to accommodate for the complexity of the reviews for final land developments, which often require a lot of engineering. And then we've also updated Barry Handwerger's review fee here, as well as an administration fee. And then finally, our technical reports, we have increased some fees. Others have remained flat, actually. So sewer modules have increased from 125 to 200. Stormwater reports have remained the same. Geotech reports have remained the same. Traffic studies have increased significantly, actually. So that's the biggest increase by 167%. These range quite a bit, and we took the median estimate. Cindy said it could take anywhere from 4 to 8 hours, and so we took the 6-hour mark there. Other reports went up a little bit, and this could include any number of things, but again, we sort of allocated by hours here and made some assumptions. And then floodplain reports increased by $100. But the other thing we did is we added potential billing fees if we need to include a floodplain engineer to do additional review. We can now do that through the proposed ordinance. Finally, there are some waivers and other administrative things that people request relief from. A planning commission waiver formal process has increased from 100 to 150. Administrative waiver for a preliminary plan has gone from 50 to 175. Sometimes these items take quite a bit of conversation and negotiation with developers before we can make a decision. And then a waiver of preliminary plan has been increased from 100 to 225. And finally, modifications to different ordinances or different sections of the ordinance has increased from 200 to 300. Again, all these increases are very much in line with the other municipalities that I reviewed as well. Do you have any questions, Councilor Diaz?
I have just one more question. In reference to, let's say, the water fees, are we considered the highest that percentage that we pass compared to other municipalities? I was just curious to know how much the difference is. Someone from the county had questioned that hers was 500 and that ours was a lot less than hers. So I was just curious.
Are you referring to our stormwater fee?
Yeah, our stormwater fees.
Patrick, do you know if there are any other municipalities in the county that have a stormwater fee yet? You're muted.
Thank you. There are a few, I believe, that have started to establish stormwater management fees, but I'm not aware, we do an annual survey review for water and sewer rates across the county, but I'm not aware of comparative stormwater management rates for other municipalities at this point.
Thank you both.
Thank you, Douglas.
You're welcome. I will point out one thing, and that's we don't charge separately for stormwater management plans. So part of the reason our fees in some cases might appear a little bit higher than other municipalities is because we're not charging separately for that. In fact, there's a lot we don't charge separately for, and stormwater fees are separate from land development. Those would be, set by council and administered by the Stormwater Bureau.
Thank you so much. Are there any other questions? I lost track of who I asked. Are there any questions from the committee and the rest of council? No. I'll entertain questions from the public if there are any. I'm not seeing Amber do anything, so I don't guess there is. So I'll make a motion that we move this to resolution number 52 to full council on the 13th. Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Craig, Councilor Craig, would you care to do that in conjunction with the passage of the ordinance on November 10th?
Thank you. That would work perfectly, Bernie. Thank you so much. So with that minor change, we'll make that same motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you so much. The last item on our agenda is Administration Resolution 49, 2020, Sewage Planning Module for Steel Silk Mill Project.
We think we have good news for you.
Thank you.
Given our time tonight, Douglas and I just learned earlier today that we haven't, the Department of Public Works and our department, Planning and Economic Development, haven't quite finished the calculations for the sewer module. So we're going to have to postpone. I actually sent you a note right at the start of this meeting. I'm sorry that it didn't get to you in time.
That's okay.
So we're going to skip it, Councilor Craig, if that is okay with you.
That is okay with me. We will be moving it to a date that you will give us in the future when you're ready.
Yes.
Thank you so much. That completes community planning for this evening. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Councilor Soto, you're muted, but if you don't mind, I'll take the meeting from here.
Yes, that's what my intentions were, to pass on the chairmanship to you at this time before I start my committee presentation.
I love it. And thank you, Councilor Soto, for taking the first portion of this meeting. Councilor Soto, Public Works Committee.
Thank you, Council President. At this time, I open up Public Works Committee. We have 3 items on the agenda. The first one being Administration Resolution number 48, adopting the Urban Tree Management Plan. And who's going to be reporting on this one? Is Mr. Campbell reporting, or is somebody else?
It will be Mr. Graybill, and I also believe that Mr. Campbell is joining.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Campbell. Who will be speaking first? Mr. Graybill?
I'm very happy to present to you Carl Graybill, who is certainly no stranger to the council. He is our environmental planner and is a subject matter expert on several different types of committees. He's on the bike plan committee, the alternative transportation committee, the complete streets, multimodal, and in this particular case, urban tree canopy. So I'm going to turn it over to Carl Graybill to make the presentation.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I can skip that introduction then and move right into the presentation. I'm going to share my screen. I do have a short presentation. And I'm going to go into the, okay. I'll get started right away. Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to present the Trees for People, an action plan for Lancaster City's urban forest. We started this effort 2 years ago, and it's actually started back in around 2013, but this current effort was started 2 years ago. It was funded through a Tree Vitalize grant and a generous contribution from the Shade Tree Commission. This allowed us to hire a consultant to help us get to this point. This plan is just the beginning of an urban forest program. It's the first step into implementing that. And through this effort that we made, we identified our strengths and our weaknesses, our opportunities, and it lays out the guidance that we need to overcome the challenges and take advantage of the opportunities as we move this program forward. The mission of the Urban Forest Action Plan is to increase and maintain Lancaster's urban forest in a sustainable way and to enlighten residents and property owners about the importance of the urban forest. That way, our urban forest will remain healthy and verdant and continue to benefit all residents and visitors long into the future. This is the primary guiding document for making future decisions regarding the growth and preservation of this urban forest. And that includes staffing, funding, needs to efficiently and effectively implement the program. The goals are supported by objectives and strategic actions that the partners should be implementing. There's 5 policy objectives, and they're based on the chapters of the plan, because no one element of the urban forest is independent of the others. We didn't assign any objective to a specific chapter. So these objectives fit in multiple chapters, multiple goals. There's so much independence or interdependence in this effort. This is just an image of part of the implementation action matrix that we have in the plan. And this has 32 actions of the 104 recommendations that are in the plan. And we distilled those 32 that we felt were the highest priorities. And they're critical and they should really be implemented first. Along with this comes outcomes that we will use to measure on a regular basis the success that we're having. A few of the actions that we highlight and are the top priorities. To create, and the very top we feel is to create a full-time position for a certified urban forest administrator as a tree point person with cross-departmental responsibility for administering all aspects of the urban forest program. We also need to establish clear responsibility and procedures for enforcement of all tree regulations. Further, we need to conduct a complete inventory and risk assessment of all trees on the streets and on public property. The analysis that was done in this plan was based on a tree inventory that was done in 2010 that really needs to be updated. in order for us to implement and plant trees, we do need support from the public, and therefore we need to increase that neighborhood-focused outreach and education efforts and strengthen alliances with community partner organizations and businesses for planting and continuing care of trees. We also need to prioritize planting in areas currently with low canopy cover. In the analysis, we recognize that a lot of our high density neighborhoods also have low tree canopy. It's one of our challenges. Other priorities that we really need to focus on, establishing a review committee to guide implementation of the plan and ensure accountability. We have a shade tree commission now, but a committee that looks just at the implementation of this. Review all tree related job descriptions and determine all tree related tasks and staff currently responsible. And report on this annually, the progress that we make toward implementation. We did feel the time was right to implement this, pass this tree plan, but in order to do it, in order to implement this, we do need volunteers and citizens to help us grow and maintain the urban forest. Since 2016, Lancaster Tree Tenders, a community organization of volunteers, has been instrumental in planting more than 2,000 trees in the city. Many of those were in riparian areas along the Conestoga River. Urban green space, such as our tree-lined streets, parks, and community gardens, provide a lot of very critical ecosystem services to the city. Environmental services, environmental benefits, economic benefits, as well as social benefits. And implementation of this plan will help to engage, educate, and empower the community on the importance of trees, especially in those high density urban environments. The tree plan is made up of 6 different chapters. Chapter 1 is the inventory and analysis of the urban tree canopy, summarizes the tree inventory data, and presents trends, results, and observations of that data. Chapter 2 is the benefits of the urban forest. That summarizes the economic, environmental, and social benefits that trees provide to the community. That's where we did a lot of the data analysis in those first 2 chapters. The tree management program develops a recommended maintenance schedule and projected budget over a 5-year period. The chapter 4 is the operations review, and that summarizes existing city tree field operations and administration, identifies the gaps, and recommends goals and improvements to enhance efficiency and cost effectiveness. Chapter 5 is the policy and ordinance review, and that examined the city's policies and regulations and recommends revisions consistent with industry standards and community needs. And chapter 6 summarizes everything, all the goals and policy objectives, and lists the recommendations from the 5 previous chapters. And then those priority, as I mentioned before, those priority recommendations are in the implementation action matrix. And then we have several appendices and references to go along with that. It's a very comprehensive plan, and yet it's still just the beginning of this program. As an example of the benefits of the urban forest, the trees do provide many triple bottom line benefits. that contribute to the sustainability of the city, economic benefits, environmental benefits, and social benefits. These benefits are realized at many levels, from individual homes, the cooling and heating benefits to individual homes, to entire neighborhoods, the aesthetic and health benefits in a neighborhood to the entire city. There's also important benefits to our health, which is one of the things that we tried to highlight here. With less illness and death from air pollution and extreme heat. And trees are especially important for meeting the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency's mandate to reduce our combined sewer overflows. This has been a driving force in many advances in green and sustainable practices that we've made in the city here in recent years. An example of the tree benefit and data analysis that we've done. It was conducted using the internationally recognized iTree tools and based on our 2011 inventory. It's important that we update that inventory. That's going on 10 years old. A lot has changed. Trees grow, trees die, trees are removed. So we do need to update that inventory so that we can continue to measure these benefits accurately. The monetary value represents financial benefits to residents, such as the lower energy costs, and to homeowners and businesses who pay taxes. The total estimated value of just our inventory trees is $3.8 million. That's just inventory trees. That's just trees along our streets and in our parks. That doesn't include all the trees on private properties. That doesn't include the trees in backyards, in cemeteries, or other private properties. Traditional gray infrastructure usually addresses a single problem, such as stormwater facilities, pipes, tanks. In contrast, trees provide multiple benefits in a cost-effective way. You can see all the benefits, the aesthetic value, which is the value of houses on a tree-lined street, stormwater capture, carbon storage and sequestration, reduction of energy, your heating and cooling costs, as well as the pollution removal. A lot of challenges and threats. I think everybody's familiar with the insect in the top left corner here, the spotted lanternfly. Prior to that, we lost a number of ash trees from the emerald ash borer. One of our biggest challenges, though, in the city is the fact that all street trees are the responsibility of the property owner. And as an example, in the top right there is a tree, which is another challenge, which is our narrow sidewalks. This is probably our biggest tree, largest tree along a city street. It's over 50 inches in diameter. It's a northern red oak on Marietta Avenue. It would be prohibitive for the property owner to have to remove this tree, the cost of that. So that's a real challenge. And then the improper pruning and care of trees. This is an example of what PPL does when it trims a tree back from the wires. This tree has since been removed as part of the Charlotte Street, a Green Street project. But we have a lot of strengths and opportunities in the city. Residents and our partners and volunteers. I think these are some good examples of that. City staff, they make do with the small tree staff that we have now, makes do and manages a lot of our tree, taking care of our trees in our parks and some along our streets. And the youth, this is an image from the 2018 Arbor Day celebration down at King Elementary School. We have the second longest standing Tree City USA program in Pennsylvania, 43 years. And we are nationally recognized for the strength of our existing program. And this plan, we just want to make that even stronger. To do what we had done with this plan and to implement it in the future, we needed to review our policies, city policies and regulations. We looked at everything that was related to trees to identify the strengths and weaknesses that could be addressed to make those documents more consistent with industry standards, similar to what Douglas was talking about with the subdivision or with the comprehensive plan and the subdivision ordinance. We did review a lot of our older plans, our 1993 city comprehensive plan, but also our green infrastructure plan and its 2018 update, the city's municipal climate action plan, and regional plans, the Growing Together comprehensive plan for central Lancaster County. That's the Lancaster Intermunicipal Communities Plan, as well as Places 2040, Thinking Beyond Boundaries, which is the county plan. We also looked at codes and ordinances that help us understand what tools are available to achieve the plan goals. 5 chapters of the city code were reviewed in depth to identify the strengths and weaknesses related to trees. Chapter 273 of the trees ordinance was reviewed in most detail. We updated that trees ordinance in 2014, and it'll be due for another update following this plan. Other ordinance we reviewed include the stormwater management ordinance, the streets and sidewalks ordinance, the subdivision and land development ordinance, and our zoning ordinance. One of our greatest strengths has been our Shade Tree Commission. And the Shade Tree Commission, in conjunction with the city arborist and other city staff, works to maximize the benefit derived from public shade trees by establishing those policies for planting, removal, maintenance, and protection of trees along the city streets and sidewalks and in parks and open spaces. And this is what we need in the city. So thank you, and I'll take any questions.
If I may just jump in for just a second, this is Steve Campbell again. This document, this work is an extraordinary amount of work, and an extraordinary work in the sense that it puts front and center the value of, I think, our second, if water is our highest and most valued asset, the trees are a very, very close second, if not an integral member of that same one. It allows us to think not only as of the value of the trees when we're talking about any capital development, any economic development, any personal development, any street, community, or neighborhood development, but to be thinking about them in significantly larger context. It helped me to establish or to redefine what we call the stormwater division as the environment, sustainability and environment division, because it is so integrated with so many different aspects. It also allowed us to look closely at not only our current staffing, but where and how we are currently spending our dollars to be able to implement aspects of this plan. This, as Carl says, this is just foundational, allowing us to see what has to be measured, what kinds of things need to be reviewed and need to be addressed. But it also allowed us to look and survey our staff and find that we actually, on our staff, have an urban forestry person, someone who has expertise in urban forestry who may be able to move into that position that was identified. It also allowed us to see that how we have been budgeting to be able to plant more trees may need to be re-examined. As an example, we currently have a tree canopy that hovers around 28% of the city coverage, where our target generally is about 40%. But this 28%, we've hovered at 28% for more than 12 years. So it means we need to look very seriously at the impediments to being able to increase the tree canopy, as Carl has described, as the implements and the tools for getting us to where we want to go. Some of where the greatest need is are in the areas where people do not have sufficient funds to take care of these trees or to manage them the way that the ordinance is currently described. And we need to find ways of getting more trees in those communities, but also not inordinately impair them with the cost of maintaining these trees. I think that this document gives us the opportunity to look and think differently about how common infrastructure gets addressed, primarily the trees, but in some ways the value and the look and the breathing of the city needs to be looked at differently. The benefit of having a robust urban tree canopy doesn't just benefit the immediate community or the street that it's on, it benefits the entire valley and it benefits the entire city. So what you will be seeing from the Department of Public Works as a result, in large part, of this document is proposals as we go into the budget season and proposals as we go into types of regulations of how can we increase the tree canopy, how can we reduce the burden on individuals, especially those with more modest incomes, and how can we make sure that the tree canopy is spread throughout the areas where it is needed most, which in large part is the southeast and the southwest communities of the city of Lancaster.
And I'll just add that as someone who was involved in that 2010 tree canopy study, I'm really happy to see that we're going to update it, and also that we're going to move the needle, because this holding study, and I actually think that we may have fallen back just with the disease trees that we've had to remove preemptively, although we've tried to save some of them, as well as storm damage that has been very significant, and we've lost a number of very sizable trees as it relates to storm damage. I'm concerned that we've fallen well below 28% just because we have not been able to keep pace, even though our small but very dedicated team continues to plant trees. We still, the number of empty tree wells that we see around the city, there's still a lot of them. So I thank you, Carl, because I know this is a lot of work in terms of moving it forward. And I thank you, Steve, for your commitment to helping to improve the tree canopy, and that this is something that has a lot of benefits for the city, in addition to a benefit as it relates to our consent decree. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. I just have a question and a comment. I'll start with my comment first. As a long resident of the city, I remember one time where from Southern Market all the way down to Highland Avenue, it was canopy of trees all the way down. And it's kind of disappeared. This is a good presentation. I'm glad we're moving forward with it. I think it's going to benefit the city and the residents of the city in the years to come. The question I had was, earlier you made a statement about the southeast and the southwest. I guess my question is, which, of the four sectors of the city, which sector has more tree canopy?
I believe it's the northwest area of the city has the highest tree canopy. There is in the plan itself, there is a map that shows the canopy level along our streets. And using that type of data, we're able to look at where the greatest need is. In the southeast and southwest, there are some neighborhoods there that we know that are very narrow streets, narrow sidewalks, and we have and small properties. So we have difficulty. There's one of our challenges of getting street trees onto those streets. So, you know, those are the types of things that we need to do further analysis, but then we also need to come up with additional strategies on how to increase the canopy in neighborhoods like that. And absolutely, cemeteries are not off limits. We have here in the city of Lancaster, in Lancaster Cemetery, we have the largest ginkgo tree. It's not a native, but we do have the largest ginkgo tree in Pennsylvania. It's on the big tree list. It's over 7 feet in diameter. So, you know, cemeteries are an opportunity. We have tools that we can use to analyze different areas of the city for planting, as well as what are the best trees for planting in those areas.
And I think if I can augment what Carl said, in the document, there's also some analysis and understanding of the different types of trees, what their benefits are, what their challenges are. So where we have to re-engineer for the very narrow streets, we may also be able to choose from trees that have smaller root systems and smaller tree canopies themselves, so that they're not interfering with overhead lines, etc., but still can provide a lot of the relief for the heat island effect, for heating and cooling effect, as well as the health benefits of those trees. But it's an engineering, it's a public right of way, it is a how does one install the trees and make sure that they have a healthy root system, and how can we support how they get maintained, whether it's by private owners, by the city itself, or by other entities that might be benevolent or not-for-profit organizations.
Thank you, gentlemen. Are there any questions from the committee?
Yes, Counselor Soto. I have just one question, and related to the tree that the spotted lantern attracts, which I recall going to an EPA meeting, and I just don't remember the tree. Is there any possibility that, I mean, their thoughts would be to remove the tree, replace it with a different tree to try to somehow eliminate them? Because I know that they're a nuisance. I just didn't know what Mr. Campbell or Mr. Grable thoughts about it or discussed it at all.
Yeah, in the past few years, we have been invaded with two different insects. The first was the emerald ash borer. And throughout the northeast part and the Great Lakes, Midwest of the United States, the emerald ash borer has killed tens of millions of ash trees. We had 300 ash trees in our inventory. We removed over 100 of those trees. We have been treating, or we removed almost 200 of those trees. We've been treating over 100 of those trees to try to keep those, because we're losing ash trees everywhere. And it's unfortunate, because the ash tree was the replacement for the elm tree after the Dutch elm disease came in and wiped out all of our elm trees along our streets. So we found this wonderful alternative. It's beautiful, has a beautiful canopy, beautiful shape. They're ideal for urban environments. They just are killed by the emerald ash borer. So we are treating over 100, as I mentioned, 50 in Longs Park alone. And now we have the spotted lanternfly, which is not as targeted, doesn't target a tree like the emerald ash borer does. The spotted lanternfly, you'll notice around a lot of maple trees, spotted lanternfly like maple trees. They're really attracted to the ailanthus or the tree of heaven, And we have been working with the USDA on eradicating most of the Atlantis in the city on public land. There's a lot on private property because they'll grow anywhere. If you're familiar with the book, A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, that was the tree of heaven, and it grew in a crack in the sidewalk. So these are, we need to be as residents and citizens of Lancaster, we need to be diligent and identify these trees and remove them. There's not a whole lot we can do with, I know everybody does the dance when they walk down the street, right? The kill the spotted lanternfly dance. But that's, right now, there's not a whole lot more we can do for them.
Well, thank you so much. It's just good to know, especially for the community that, don't understand what we're going through. And of course, I do the dance, I kill it. And the hard part is as soon as they jump out, I get so mad because I didn't catch it. But thank you so much.
Welcome.
Very welcome.
Are there any questions from the city council? The rest of council? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to move administration resolution number 48 to full council on the 13th. Is that correct?
Second.
So move.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, now we move to resolution, administration resolution number 50, land acquisition for PennDOT for the Northeast Greenway Trail. Mr. Campbell, will you be addressing that one?
Yes, I will. So this is a resolution to be able to, the reading of the resolution is a resolution of the City Council, the City of Lancaster, approving a project related to the connection of the Northeast Greenway Trail to Conestoga Pines Park and authorizing the mayor and all other appropriate officials of the City of Lancaster to execute agreements of sale and such other documents as are required by the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation to complete the project. So there is a piece, if I'm able, I'm for some reason I'm not seeing the connection to share my screen, but if most people know where Conestoga Pines is, the particular piece of property that we're looking at to be acquired from PennDOT is up East Walnut Street, just north of the Amtrak tracks on the west side of the Conestoga River. It's a beautiful piece of land. It's about 1.21 acres, which is at the nexus of the Northeast Greenway Trail, which would allow us to connect it to the Green Lancaster Heritage Pathway. And for those of you who may be familiar with it, there is actually a trestle bridge that will be part of the Greenway Trail. We have the opportunity of acquiring this piece of property for the grand total of $1. And we're asking that we authorize the mayor to be able to execute this purchase on behalf of the system. It would be an incredible opportunity to make the connection of the Greenway Trail and some of the other, not only bike routes, but pedestrian routes from the rest of Lancaster into the Conestoga Pines area, which is where the Conestoga Water Treatment Plant is. And that is what this resolution is asking for.
Are there any questions from the committee? Any questions from the rest of City Council? Mr. Campbell, how do we stand with the funding for the continuous Greenway Trail?
We have most of the funding in place for the part that is being designed, which will be renovated or be built over the course of the next I think 12 to 14 months. We're still continuing to go after more money for further north on the trail, but the primary connection that we're most concerned about, we have the money for. And it will be underway, if memory serves, it will be underway during the next 6 to 9 months.
Thank you, Mr.
The detailed design of that work.
I'd like to see the final results. No questions from this. Are there any questions from the public? Do we have anything from the public? Okay, thank you, Amber. And on that note, then I will entertain a motion to move resolution number 50, land acquisition, to full council on the 13th. Would that be correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
Do we have a motion?
Motion to,
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
aye.
Aye. That brings us to our last item on the agenda for Public Works Committee, which will be Administration Resolution number 51, 2020, Municipal Program Grant Applicant for the Plum Street Roundabout.
Yes, thank you again. Just the reading of the resolution it's a resolution of the Council of the City of Lancaster requesting a multimodal transportation fund grant of $346,950 from the Commonwealth Financing Authority to be used for the Plum Street Roundabout. So many of you are familiar with this roundabout, which was implemented on a experimental basis about 10, 12 months ago, to a huge amount of comment. As far as we are concerned in DPW, it's a tremendous success because the key goal was to reduce the speed of traffic, to reduce accidents, and to make a much safer traffic and pedestrian area for that particular community. It has succeeded in that in spades. The details of the accident reports I have to get for you. We need to get the right summary, but it has significantly reduced not only traffic accidents, but pedestrian intersections. Now, the part of the controversy, of course, was that it did in fact slow down traffic because those two streets are thoroughfares that people liked to go rather quickly through. Because it has been successful, we are wanting to actually implement the permanent solution, which is to turn that roundabout into an actual permanent curbed and engineered roundabout. We had made an application to that effect a number of months ago, but for a variety of reasons, it was not approved, in large part, we believe, because of the competition for those particular grant funds. We have a great sense in speaking with PennDOT now that we would have a great chance of getting this funding. We believe that the cost of doing the roundabout would be approaching almost $500,000, but the $349,000 would go a huge way towards doing the engineering work, as well as being able to build the key infrastructure. One of the reasons why it seems a bit more expensive than just putting a few orange cones up is that we are looking for slightly wider turning radiuses at the corners of that intersection, which means re-curbing those areas. And of course, we would want to ensure that there's appropriate ADA access at that intersection as well. So we are looking forward to we want to be able to make this application, and hopefully which in large part has been well thought out, would have a relatively short design and engineering process, but it would still take the better part of 12 to 16 months to design and actually build once we get those funds in place.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. I will say that all I've heard is positive remarks from the neighborhood. concerning it. At first, people were objecting to it because they didn't understand it, but the neighborhood itself is supportive of it. Any questions or comments from the Public Works Committee? Any comments from the rest of City Council? Ooh. Any questions from the public?
There is no longer anyone from the public on.
Okay, I guess we ran over a little too long for everyone. Mayor, do you have anything to say on it? All right, good. At this point, then I will entertain a motion to move administration resolution number 51, 2020 to full council on the 13th.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 And I guess at this point, that concludes the Public Works Committee. Council President.
Thank you, Councilor Soto. That brings us to the Public Safety Committee. Councilor Garcia Molina.
Thank you, Mr. President. Actually, tonight we'll make this quick. The Community Police Working Group will actually be presenting to us on the full council meeting on the 13th. So they won't be with us today. So that is
Great.
it.
I cannot wait. Thank you, Councilor Garcia Molina.
Look forward to it.
Councilor Soto?
I said I look forward to it.
Absolutely. That brings us to the Committee of the Whole, which I will hereby open. We have one item for consideration. That's the Council Resolution number 47, 2020, recognizing the service to the community of the Eviction Prevention Network. So I'll talk about that a little bit briefly. As many of you know, the Eviction Prevention Network is a network of providers that work in housing and homelessness prevention. It includes Tabor, LHOP, Echoes, and among other things, they provide rental assistance to prevent evictions across the county. So what we have is a resolution recognizing their work, especially in the chaos of lost jobs and closed businesses due to COVID-19, and the several frankly unclear and competing eviction moratoria, which have been sort of in effect or not in effect since April of this year. Just wanted to recognize them because they are doing a significant amount to prevent homelessness in Lancaster County. I believe there was an amendment offered. If counselors have seen that in their email inboxes. I don't know if that went to, hold on just a second.
It just went to you, Council President, and was CC'd to Mr. Harris.
Amazing. If you have the documentation of the amendment, and thank you, Mayor, if you have the documentation of the ordinance, I would entertain a motion to add an additional whereas clause recognizing the contributions of the City of Lancaster's CDBG, that's Community Development Block Grant funds, to the Eviction Prevention Network. That would read as follows. Whereas the City of Lancaster has committed $450,000 to members of the Eviction Prevention Network to directly assist individuals and families at risk of becoming homeless, an investment that represents almost half of the first round of Community Development Block Grant funds allocated to the city through the Federal CARES Act. That is the text of the would-be amendment, and I would hear a motion to amend to that effect. Councilor Soto, you're muted.
I'll motion to amend.
I so move, Council President.
Councilor Arroyo, would you second?
Second.
Great. We have a motion and a second for the amendment. Council comments on the amendment to the proposed resolution. Seeing as there is no public, Mr. Harris, would you call the vote on the amendment?
Actually, Mr. President, when in the committee level, it's not really necessary to have a vote in order to amend something that's still a working document.
I love work that I don't have to do. In that case, unless there's broader council comment on the matter, I will move personally to add this to the agenda of the first council meeting of October. Do I have a second?
You have a second,
Second.
Council President.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
That sounded like more than 3 of you, so I'm going to presume that added to the agenda. That concludes the business portion of the meeting tonight. Mr. Harris, your clerk's report.
Mr. President, given that we're 3 hours and 15 minutes into the meeting, I would point out that I submitted that report to you in writing and to all other council members.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Harris. Mr. Harris, just to clarify, has enough time passed? What is the official time of the first council meeting for the month of October?
It is on October 13th. And I'm sorry, the official, the time has passed, yes, and it's been advertised. It will begin at 6:30 p.m.
All right, everybody, I will see you at 6:30 on October 13th. Please have a good evening. I will hear a motion to adjourn.
So move.
To adjourn. Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Have a good evening.
God bless all and be safe.